2 million years after humanity's extinction, a mother gave birth to a worthless child before being struck by lightning, and the ugly baby lost all of his bodily parts except for his disgusting skull. Because on the day he was born, his father found God in a ghetto temple, but as God tried to run away, he killed him with his sword and tried to make a deal with the 12 heavenly demons, swearing to sacrifice his firstborn to become the strongest leader in the world. So after Dago told the midwife to kill his son and hide all the evidence, the fat ass witch made it to a river where she was about to drown the useless child. But when she saw a boat in the distance, she decided to cast him down the river instead, and as soon as the disgusting hag pushed him away, a legendary demon appeared to devour her. However, an ugly blind elder sensed the presence of the demon and used his blade to slash it down with a single strike. Before realizing there was a baby in the boat, with God's ancient power radiating from his insides. On the other side of the world, a man dragged a pathetic victim to crucify him, along with all the other enemy soldiers they defeated. But when he saw his wife getting accidentally killed by his own knights, the man couldn't bear it anymore, and decided to isekai himself by passionately hugging the ground. However, the man somehow survived and became colorblind, but when he approached a mysterious boat, he saw the body of the dismembered baby that was still alive. Throughout the years, the man began raising the disgusting child, and even created fake limbs and skin for him. But he realized that the child couldn't feel any pain, and lacked all emotions. So he named him Hyakimaru, after the Japanese word for 100 demons, and spent his entire life training him to become the coldest super soldier in the world. But after killing thousands of demons and being covered in their blood, Hyakimaru's godly powers activated, regenerating the leg he'd been missing. By the time he turned 16, the old man wished he taught Hyakimaru how to do anything except killing. However, Hyakimaru tried feeling his face for the first time, and hugged onto the man that raised him as if he was his father, before leaving him forever. For the next 3 billion years, Hyakimaru began traveling the world without ever eating, until one day, he saw a child called Dororo, getting beaten for stealing money from 3 oppressive men. But before the men left, Dororo launched a stone at their leader's eye, so the fatso began drowning Dororo, and ordered his men to bring the sword for killing him. As they walked away, however, they saw Hyakimaru in the distance, but he was looking past them at the demon he noticed in the river. Just then, the demon launched and devoured the fat ass with a single strike, so the other lackeys began running away. But the demon swallowed them up as well. As it was about to eat Dororo, Hyakimaru slashed its arm off and threw Dororo away, before running to evade its attacks and destroy the bridge. The beast continued attempting to swallow him, but Hyakimaru continued slashing the foundations of the bridge, causing it to collapse as the monster was chasing him, and killing the demon underneath all the rubble. In that moment, Hyakimaru's mask fell off, and he regained his skin as lightning blasted in the distance, destroying one of the 12 demons. At the same time, Dago's second son showed his mother the dove he caught, but she couldn't stop missing her first son, and stared at the statue of the goddess that sacrificed herself on that day. Eventually, the two of them began traveling to a neighboring village. But along the way, Dororo realized that although Hyakimaru was blind, he was able to see the outline of their souls, and was able to find the demons by the red colors their souls emitted. Eventually, they made it to the village, but as they were about to sleep in the horse stables that night, a mysterious demon came to ring the bells of hell and left without saying any word. The following morning, the chief took them to meet Lady Bandai, the priestess of the village. When they got there, the priestess apologized for her appearance, saying that she hasn't been able to use her legs after Tyrone blew her back out. But although Dororo thought she was beautiful, Hyakimaru felt the presence of a demon and began trying to attack her. However, Dororo held him off while the other villagers came to take him away, throwing both of them in prison. As Dororo wondered why he was trying to kill the hot girl, the blind elder revealed his presence, and said they had locked him away for the same reason. After all, he recognized Hyakimaru as the baby that was cast away, and revealed that he also had the ability to see the souls of the demons. Just then, both of them sensed the presence of another demon, and Hyakimaru ran to slash its arm off, before jumping inside a well. Together with Muni, they began heading down the secret tunnels until they arrived at the priestess's room, and Hyakimaru knocked her door down before she began revealing her true form. Immediately, Hyakimaru attempted to launch towards her, but she knocked him away with her tail, and she released all of her arms towards him. After closing the distance, he penetrated her eyes with his swords, but the village chief restrained him in the last instant, and told the demon to run away. As soon as he slashed the cloak down, Hyakimaru began chasing the demon throughout the forest. But Banai was able to trap him down with the bamboo sticks. Before she could kill him, the demon rung the bells of hell again. But Hyakimaru disappeared when she looked back, and launched down from the sky to slash her head, eliminating her in that instant. As Banai revealed her hot form once again, she realized that one of the 12 demons failed in sacrificing him. But before she could keep talking, Hyakimaru pierced her face, killing her for the final time. The demon continued ringing the bells of hell before disintegrating, and when Dororo searched the ground, he saw thousands of gold coins that were buried. This was the money that Banai kept stealing from the adventurers she killed, and the chief revealed that this was the only way their village could continue surviving, so he sold his life to the demons in exchange for the gold. At the same time, 2 of the 12 demons were killed, restoring Hyakimaru's nervous system and allowing him to be able to hear once again. That night in the forest, the noises from all the animals overwhelmed him, but Dororo wondered how he could hear anything when everywhere was completely silent. So he wrapped a cloth around his ears to muffle the noise, and suggested that they hunt no demons until he was recovered. Just then, Hyakimaru noticed a monster in the forest, and a great bird flew between them. Immediately, he drew his sword, and as the monster returned, he narrowly evaded it. However, it flew towards them again, nearly snatching him up, and the noises from falling leaves distracted him, allowing the bird to knock him into the ground. As it returned, Hyakimaru managed to slash it, but the bird tried carrying him away, and he utilized the opportunity to wound it. But as it returned to end him, Muni appeared at that moment and cut it to pieces in an instant. Just then, Dororo noticed that Hyakimaru was spaced out and tried returning him to his senses, but he was pretty much dead on the inside. The following morning, as Hyakimaru woke up, he began hearing a singing voice and followed it to the river. As he arrived, he realized that the singer was a girl, and the purity in her soul drew him closer to her. As he tried to touch her, she discovered he was blind, but he nearly passed out in her arms, and she noticed Dororo and Muni, thinking they were probably his companions. As they settled in an old abandoned temple, they realized that Hyakimaru was very sick from his injuries, and Muni said he was probably starting to become a real human. As Mio arrived, she told them to stay until Hyakimaru was recovered, and revealed half a dozen orphan kids she was caring for. Just then, the kids appeared before them, and Mio said they were survivors of the war. As Takibo decided to take charge, he commanded the others to leave, and told Mio to get some sleep before her night shift. Later that day, as Dororo decided to meet Takibo, he offered to help him with his duty, but the boy turned him down, saying that he wishes to work as hard as his sister Mio. When Dororo noticed that Muni was starting to leave, he told him that he was going to find a safe path through the forest and would return afterwards. In Dago's village, a messenger told him that the Sakai clan were waiting at their border and that they were starting to run out of food as it has not rained in weeks. Just then, Mina appeared, saying that the past was starting to repeat itself. At the temple, Mio decided to check on Hyakimaru and discovered that he was burning up from a fever. Realizing he needs medication, she promised to bring him some healing potions while returning from her night duty. And just as she began to sing, he wished she wouldn't leave, but would stay by his side forever. Inside the forest, Muni discovered a path through the creek and thought it would make a better home for Mio and the orphans. However, he soon noticed the presence of a demon deep inside a hole, and thought that this place wasn't safe after all. The following day, when Mio returned to the village, she realized that Hyakimaru was waiting outside, and decided to give him the medication she brought. However, he tried telling her to sing instead, and Dororo said her voice would probably awaken his mind. As she began singing, Muni arrived, and as they settled inside, he told them about the area he found in the forest, and said that it would be a good place to hide when the war begins. However, he revealed that a great demon was already living on the land, and that it would only be safe when it was gone. Hearing his words, Hyakimaru began heading towards the forest, and ignored Dororo when he tried to stop him. As Muni realized he was far from recovery, he decided to follow him for support. So with the men gone, Mio revealed that she would be working for both villages that were preparing for war, saying that it was the fastest way to earn more money. However, the boys thought it was too dangerous, so Dororo promised to follow her and protect her if she fell into danger. That evening, as he trailed her into the forest, he realized that her work was developing plot with the soldiers, and was depressed by what he saw, and the amount of things she endured every day. At the same time, Hyakimaru and Muni arrived at the large hole. As they spotted the demon, Hyakimaru drew his swords, but Muni realized he was still sick from his injuries. Muni tried suggesting that he waits until he's recovered, but the monster began drilling the ground, and the sand pulled them deep into the hole. After jumping off the rocks, Hyakimaru flew at the monster, and Mooney slashed it from behind, forcing it to turn its attention. As soon as it was distracted, Hyakimaru stabbed its head, but the demon caught him, and began pulling him deep into the ground. Luckily, Mooney managed to save him, but Hyakimaru began screaming from a terrible pain, as half of his leg was lost to the demon. That night, as Dororo returned to the temple, he came across Mooney and Hyakimaru. As he noticed Hyakimaru's severed leg, he fell from the shock, and Mooney revealed that it was eaten by the demon. However, when he realized that Hyakimaru was actually groaning from the pain, Mooney told him that he had now also gained his ability to speak. In the morning when Mio arrived, she found Hyakimaru injured and wondered what happened. But Mooney told her that he would survive his injury. As she began to clean his wound, Dororo noticed her scars and ran off at the memory of what he saw. A few minutes later, Takibo found him and wondered why he left, but Dororo thought it was better to keep what he saw a secret. As he asked if he has ever seen Mio at work, Takibo began telling him that his duty was to watch over the remaining orphans, and that they were only able to stay alive because of Mio's sacrifice. At Dago's village, Tahamaru began demanding to be sent off to the battlefield, but Dago said he was still just a kid, and told him to have his mom teach him how to play with his small sword.
I beg your pardon?
However, his mom liked Hyakimaru more than him because he played the sponsor of today's video, AFK Arena, the greatest idle game ever made, especially with one of the greatest crossovers of all time with One Punch Man. Ever wanted to punch morons like Daigo away for being a useless father? With this new crossover event, you'll be able to use Saitama to punch away some of the greatest anime characters ever made and finally put it to the test to find out who wins. For a limited time, you'll be able to recruit both Saitama and Tatsumaki onto your roster for free, and instead of having to do Saitama's broken daily training regimen, you can just idle to make your characters stronger. Just get on, enjoy your time watching these broken characters, activate Auto Crusher mode, and let your unbreakable team conquer stages 24/7. On top of that, AFK Arena has also teamed up with many anime IPs in the past, letting you build the ultimate cross-universe battle stage. Ever wondered if Saitama could last against Sung Jinwoo's endless shadow army, or if Rimuru could absorb one of Saitama's serious punches? AFK Arena provides you with a playground to test out fights from your fantasies and bring them to reality. So what are you waiting for? Scan the QR code or click the link to download AFK Arena. And for a limited time, you'll be getting 10 free summons every day in the first month to recruit even more of your favorite characters, giving you a chance to craft the greatest roster with over 1,000 free draws in total. You'll get some of the strongest characters and won't have to be an ugly loser like Tahamaru, who isn't even liked by his own mother.
Damn!
As Mina appeared, Tahamaru begged her to play with his sword, but she thought he was a spoiled little brat and ignored everything he said. However, Tahamaru realized she'd been only pretending to care about him ever since he was born, and wondered whose sword she was really worried about. He thought she was definitely hiding a secret, and hoped to eventually discover it. At the temple, the memory of the incident continued flashing across Hyakimaru's mind, and as he tried heading to the forest, he fell from his injury. But Mio hurried to give him her support. To help him relax, she tried asking him to speak, but discovered that he could not say a word, so she began to sing for him. As Mooney spied on them, he realized that Mio's singing voice was calming the demon that was starting to appear inside Hyakimaru's soul. So as he began to leave, he told Dororo that he would stay around the forest in the meantime, and revealed that Hyakimaru's demon flames might one day turn him into a monster. That evening, as Mio began heading to work, she told Dororo that she noticed him the previous night, and said that this was their only means of surviving. So he decided to forgive her, and said that she was actually brave, so he would never hate her for sacrificing herself for all the other kids. Immediately, he ran up to the temple, happy to have finally made peace with her. At the temple, Hyakimaru began sharpening wood to replace his leg, but Dororo decided to feed him his meal, saying that it was the only way he would regain his strength. However, he hoped Hyakimaru would never become a monster, and told him that he was his only friend in the world. By the morning, Hyakimaru had fixed the wood, and was practicing with his sword. As the orphans admired his sword arms, they decided to show him several hidden swords, and Takibo revealed that they found them on the battlefield. At the same time, Mio began heading to work, but a soldier from the Ishikawa clan spotted her and thought she was probably a spy. On that night, with all the other kids asleep, Dororo realized that Hyakimaru had left the temple and thought he must have gone to face off with the demon. At the hole, Hyakimaru drew his swords and was ready for the battle. As he slid into the hole, he began dodging the demon's claws, and it started raining at the same time. As the beast bit off his leg again, he stabbed it right in the mouth and jumped very high before slaying it in an instant. At that moment, the rain stopped and Dago's statue split in half. When Mio arrived at the temple, Takibo told her that Hyakimaru had gone off to fight the monster, so she hurried immediately. Just then, a bunch of Ishikawa soldiers arrived and followed her to the temple. As Hyakimaru and Dororo began returning home, the boy was happy to see his leg restored. But after hearing those words, Hyakimaru realized that the temple was burning, as the soldiers slayed the orphans without any mercy. When Dororo arrived, he discovered that all of his friends were dead, and the leader wondered if he was one of the spies. He said that Mio was spotted entering the enemy's camp right after leaving them, so he thought she was selling them off. Thinking he could save her, Dororo began running to her, but the man caught him and threw him to the ground. However, as he tried to end him, Hyakimaru sliced off his hand, so the men surrounded him immediately. At that moment, Hyakimaru discovered that Mio was about to die, and the realization sent him into a frenzy. So he stabbed the first soldier and began killing the rest of them as the anger overtook him, driven by madness and revenge. At the sight of this, Dororo remembered Muni's words and thought Hyakimaru might end up becoming a monster, so he stopped him before he could slay the leader, allowing the man to escape. As he revealed a pouch, Dororo told him that it was filled with seed rice and said that it was Mio's dream to one day create a rice farm for the children so she could feed them rice patties. After all, none of them had ever eaten anything except burnt rice patties after the war, so he told him to hang on to it and to never forget Mio's dreams. After hearing those words, Hyakimaru let out his first word and said, "Mio," and they buried all the bodies before leaving the temple. As they resumed their travels, the only thing they kept on hearing was Mio's sweet voice singing, pushing them to keep moving forward in their miserable lives. When it was night, Dororo tried asking if Hyakimaru was hungry, but he only held on to the pouch. Before long, Dororo began hearing voices in the forest, and thought two lovebirds were probably developing plot behind the bushes. As he grew angry at the thought, he began hurling stones at the trees, but a basket nearly crushed him. Just then, he noticed a spider before him, and Hyakimaru rushed up the tree immediately. In an instant, he slashed the webs, and a man fell to the ground. But Dororo realized that he has probably lost his mind. As Hyakimaru flew at the monster, he slashed it instantly, but it cast a web and bound him to a tree before escaping immediately. Later that night, as they spotted a village, Dororo suggested they stay there for the night, and the monster thought it was the best place for her to recover. When they arrived at the village, they discovered that they needed a pass to enter, and a guard told them that there was a kidnapper abducting the villagers. In the morning, a villager noticed the lady on the roadside, but she pushed him away and pretended to be afraid. As he noticed she was sick, he invited her to his home, saying he would offer her some food. However, she thought it was her chance to drain his life force and realized she could waste him like an empty doll. At his home, he introduced himself as Yajiro and wondered if she has a name. When she said that she doesn't have one, he decided to name her Ohagi. Believing she was hungry, he decided to serve her a bowl of rice, and she thought that it was delicious. As he wondered where she was from, she told him to mind his fucking business and said that she would leave his hellhole once she regains her full strength. Just then, he began to leave, saying he would return when it was dark, and she thought he was a mysterious man. At night, as Yajiro arrived home, he noticed that Ohagi's sickness was getting worse and wondered if she hasn't eaten all day. Right then, he spotted a cockroach and decided to release it outside. At the sight of this, Ohagi wondered why he decided to spare it unlike every other human in his right mind, so he told her that every life was special. His words impressed her, and she told him that she has never met anyone like him. However, as they slept that night, she crawled to his spot and tried to eat him out, but discovered that she was hungry for food, and decided to eat the rest of her meal before going back to bed. She thought he was a special human and wished to know everything about him. When it was morning, Dororo was exhausted from scouting the village and wondered where the spider could be hiding. However, later that day, Dororo discovered that another villager has gone missing, but wondered how it was possible, seeing as there was no sign of any monster. That night, Yajuru realized that Ohagi has gotten even worse, and told her that they have no doctors in the village. On top of that, they need a traveler's pass before she could leave, so he offered to sneak her outside. Meanwhile, Hyakimaru and Dororo were chewing on weeds for dinner, and Dororo thought they would definitely starve to death if they continued to stay in the village. At the same time, Yajuru and Ohagi began hurrying to the secret exit, but before long, they came across Hyakimaru and Dororo. Realizing who they were, Ohagi wondered if they were waiting to slay her, but this only made Dororo discover that she was the spider, and he commanded Hyakimaru to attack her. However, Yajuru decided to protect her, and said that he was actually the kidnapper. Just then, the guards appeared, and threatened to execute Yajuru for sneaking people out of the village. Dororo tried saying that he found him first and deserves the reward, but the leader revealed that there was never a reward in the first place, and that it was merely a scam to make the people confess. As he commanded his men to capture them, Ohagi bound the men with her webs, and consumed their life force immediately. Just as Hyakimaru sensed her red soul glowing again, he drew his sword and tried to attack her, but she bound him with her cloak and ran away with her man. As Dororo freed him, Hyakimaru ran after them, and a guard called for the others with a whistle. Eager to escape, Ohagi cast a web to the top of the mountain and pulled them up. As Yajuru realized she had regained her strength, he began saying that he was probably useless to her now, but she told him that she wants him by her side forever. Yajuru wondered if she kills humans after draining their life force, but she told him that she always spares their life, but continues to suck their life force every single time. This was all Yajuru wanted to hear, so he offered himself to her, because he was tired of his lonely life anyway. Eventually, they arrived at the secret cave, and Yajuru told her to find her way to the exit, but she suggested that they escape together. After all, his identity was exposed already, and she thought he would never be safe here. However, just as he agreed, arrows pierced his body, and Ohagi realized that the soldiers had found them. As she grew angry, she cancelled the arrows and bound the men, immediately draining their life force. At that moment, she transformed into the spider and captured the others, but Hyakimaru cut her web. As he sliced off her leg, she knocked him away, and told Yajuru that she would not abandon him. However, when Hyakimaru was unwilling to allow her to escape, Yajuru asked him to spare her life, and said that he wants to stay with her forever, so Hyakimaru decided to leave her alone. The next day, they continued their travel, and Dororo noticed that Hyakimaru was starting to smile. A few days later, Dororo began wondering why Hyakimaru was not talking to him, since he had already regained the ability to speak. As they noticed some weird-looking people carrying a girl to the top of the mountain, Dororo thought it was probably a bridal parade, but wondered why the bride was sad. Just then, a boy slid down the mountain, hoping to stop the group, but the wind blew his arrow away. Before he could fire another one, Dororo stopped him, saying that he would not allow him to eliminate the beautiful bride. However, the boy thought he was a clueless moron, and told him that the girl was his sister, but was being married off to a monster. As he tried leaving, Dororo offered to support him, saying that Hyakimaru could defeat any monster. Before long, they arrived at the top of the mountain, and Saru revealed a dark, mysterious cloud over their village. He said that the monster was called the Nakasergumo, and that it appears almost every day to devour their villagers. So to save their own skin, they began offering a girl to the demon, and managed to keep the village safe. However, Dororo thought it made no sense, and wondered why girls were specifically being offered to the monster. But even Saru had no idea. Thinking he could scam the fuck out of this loser, Dororo offered to rescue her, but said that it wouldn't be for free, so Saru decided to pay him with worms and a tiny piece of gold. As Dororo realized he could probably sell it, Saru offered to give him more of it if they succeeded, so he agreed to help him, and Saru introduced himself. A few hours later, when the other villagers had returned, Dororo and Saru knocked out the guards, and Saru decided to free Genie. However, his sister told him that she could not leave the mountain, as she was afraid that the demon would devour the entire village in her place. Saru tried telling her to save her own skin, but she told him that her life was far less important than everyone else's. Just then, Dororo began telling her that they would slay the monster, and Hyakimaru drew his sword to prove he was ready. At that moment, the dark cloud began rising towards them, and the guards nearly pissed themselves. In an instant, they were sucked into the clouds, and their devoured bodies were dumped to the ground. As they heard a roar, Dororo tried telling Hyakimaru that the demon was inside the clouds, but his vision was surrounded by a wall of evil flame. Before they knew it, a monstrous centipede descended from the clouds, looking to devour Saru. but Genie pushed him out of the way and was swallowed in his place. At the sight of the huge monster, Dororo wondered if they even stood a chance. However, as it returned, Dororo tried warning Hyakimaru, but he still could not see shit. Luckily, heated water sprung out of a geyser and revealed a ray of light in the darkness, scaring off the demon, and the dark clouds vanished instantly. However, Saru was sad with his sister being killed, realizing he would never see her again. So Dororo decided to follow him home, but realized he was living in the mountains, and Saru told him that he lives on his own. As he wondered how they could avenge her, Dororo said that he has just the perfect plan, but revealed that Hyakimaru was probably useless at this point. At that moment, they realized that the cloud has expanded, and ashes began falling from the sky. As they discovered it was the skin from the centipede, they realized that it was growing even bigger in size. Seeing how massive it was, Saru thought they couldn't possibly stand a chance, but Dororo revealed that the sunlight was its weakness. So the following day, Dororo pretended to be a new bride and successfully lured out the monster. Immediately, he started running away, and as he dodged the centipede, he jumped into a hole. But he emerged outside to draw its attention, and started running away again. However, as he slipped, the monster tried devouring him at that instant, but he luckily made it into the hole. At the same time, Saru was waiting on the mountain, and just as he spotted the monster, he launched a flaming arrow at the geyser, causing it to erupt into a mighty explosion, burning up the monster. However, just before the sun appeared, it quenched the fire and released more fumes to cloud the area before rising high for the kill. At that moment, Hyakimaru drew its attention with a rock and launched his arrow at the monster. As he fired another and a third arrow, he rushed at it and slashed its face, causing it to crash. However, it was still alive, and he narrowly dodged its tentacle before getting knocked away. Dororo realized he could draw Hyakimaru's attention towards the monster, so he jumped down the mountain, landing on top of it, and screamed at Hyakimaru to follow the sound of his voice. As the monster hurried away, crashing through a rock, a stone knocked Dororo unconscious. Just then, Hyakimaru began screaming, desperate to draw its attention, but was knocked away. Even so, he continued screaming, and managed to stop the demon before it devoured him. As he took the onslaught, the beast threw him high into the sky, but Dororo directed him with his voice, and he pierced its eye, forcing it to emerge from the clouds, and the sunlight began molting its skin. Right then, Hyakimaru jumped inside its mouth and ripped it in half instantly, causing it to vanish. With the monster slain, Dororo was happy to have survived the battle, as they fell into a river. A few moments later, Saru spotted Genie inside the water and realized that she was still alive, so he was happy to be reunited with her. Right then, Hyakimaru began to groan, and his fake nose fell into the water, allowing a real nose to grow in its place. A few minutes later, as Saru gave Dororo the remaining gold he promised, he realized that it was a rotten piece of food, and wondered how they would survive on this. But Genie decided to thank him with a flower. As they began leaving the mountain, Hyakimaru smelled the flower and said Dororo's name for the first time. When he heard that, Dororo realized Hyakimaru was starting to regain his full humanity. Later that day, as Hyakimaru sniffed a flower, he decided to smell Dororo's face, but he pushed him away and fell from exhaustion. As he tried to stand, he fell again, and Hyakimaru realized that something was definitely wrong with him. So he carried him to a nearby village, and tried asking for help from a farmer, but the man ignored him. As he met another man, he tried telling him that Hyakimaru was really sick, but the man told him that he's not a doctor, and decided to leave. Having nowhere else to go, Hyakimaru left him on the ground, and Dororo remembered that this was exactly how his mother died. Luckily, a woman found them and decided to take them home. As Dororo regained consciousness, he thought Hyakimaru must have abandoned him and tried to leave, but she managed to calm him down. Just then, she realized that Dororo was actually a girl, but as she noticed the manjushagi flower, Dororo revealed that it reminds her of her parents, and this made her sad. 6 years ago, her father was the leader of a group of warriors who fought to eliminate the samurais for destroying their village during the war, but was led to a trap by her evil uncle to kill all of them. With all his men dead, one of the soldiers stabbed her father from the back, but he took him with him to the afterlife, and they watched as the village burned before them. Being the only 2 surviving members, her mother began caring for Dororo on her own. But as they traveled for weeks without any food, her mother passed out in a field full of manjushagi flowers, and she begged Dororo to be strong and to survive until the war was over. So her words inspired Dororo to survive, and she told the woman that she would never give up. as she wondered how the girl traveled for weeks without any proper food. She told Hyakkimaru that his companion was actually a girl. A few days later, as they began to leave the village, Dororo wondered if Hyakkimaru has discovered that she was a girl, but he merely ignored her secret. At Daigo's village, a messenger began telling him that his abandoned baby may have survived, and that a commander in their army was attacked by a mysterious man with prosthetic arms. Hearing these words, Daigo wondered if his son could possibly be alive. Later that day, a chief told him that it has